What was the biggest bullet you dodged? A few years ago I had pneumonia, but my whole family insisted that it was just post-nasal drip, which runs in the family. After a week or two I woke up in the middle of the night when I couldn't feel my arm. After I got to the ER the doctor said that it was the worst he'd ever seen and he was surprised I wasn't dead. I had 3 pounds of mucus cut out of my lungs and another 2 weeks in the hospital siphoning out the rest. For 3 months afterwards I could barely walk half a mile without starting to pass out, and I still can't run for more than 200 to 300 yards without collapsing. Have you looked into respiratory therapy to try to build yourself back up to running? My dad was a truck driver in the oil field in Canada. He worked a lot of long hours and every single day. So on weekends he would bring me and my younger brother on some of his jobs. We were on location and my little brother 3YRS and me 10YRS were waiting for him playing in cab of truck. My little brother opened the passenger door and my little arms closed it. Job's done, we start our trek home going about 35 km/h and the door flies open and I get sucked out of truck. I remember doing about 10 backflips as I tumbled out, hitting the ground on my back a few times and rolling my way to a stop. I stood up before the truck was even stopped in absolute shock. Next thing I see my dad looking for me and he burst into tears. First time I ever seen him cry. I'm 33 now and he still won't talk to me about it. Luckily the rig was in a farmer's field. So when we were leaving I landed on softer dirt. Not a single scratch on me. Dad thought he ran over me with trailer. Don't think we ever went to work with Dad again. I work for the company now. I fell out of a farm truck with I was about 8, going about 35 down a just out of town stretch of highway. I bounced a few times and came to a stop just about to the shoulder of the road. I remember overwhelming certainty that I was going to die, and I rolled to the ditch. Missed getting run over by about 10 inches, got up, my mom had come back for me and immediately took me to the ER where I was given a total clean bill of health. Not a bump though, I did have a nasty bruise where I hit the road initially. Who knew kids were made of rubber? Around 30,000 pounds. I was driving with my wife in town one snowy evening and we had pulled up to a stoplight. I happened to glance up at the rear view mirror and saw a city bus heading towards us. And rotating sideways, I hit the gas and pulled ahead into the intersection and left into the turning lane, and less than a second later, the bus went sliding through right where our car was. It came to a stop on the other side of the intersection and fortunately didn't hit anything, but 1 second or 2 feet difference and we would have had some nice spinal injuries. I once took care of a couple in a rehab facility who was in the accident that you narrowly avoided. Bus on a snowy road slid into them at an intersection. They had matching spinal cord injuries that resulted in them both being paralyzed from the waist down. You're really lucky. Many years ago, my flight had just landed at Chicago O'Hare and the plane was taxiing when the pilot suddenly slammed on the brakes. People were literally thrown forward against the seat in front of them. A few seconds later, another plane taking off I think went screaming by right in front of us. No explanation was given, though our imaginations provided a lot of gory details. Just regular Chicago drivers. So did y'all get some extra frequent flyer miles or anything? So, what do you think happened? I believe the worst ever aircraft incident happened in a similar manner in Tenerife. You have definitely dodged a massive bullet. As a kid, after running errands in town with my mom, I was climbing into the back seat of our family station wagon. A semi-truck hit a power line pole down the street causing the still live wire to fall, bounce off the roof of the car and hang across the open door just a foot or two above my legs. Raised Catholic, I wondered for a while after if I had actually died that day and that the rest of what I thought was my life was my purgatory. Years ago I lived in Vancouver and liked to go for long walks, beautiful city to do so. Not changing jobs in early 2020, would have been a short-lived promotion after early restructuring and layoffs. A friend had lost his job under suspicious circumstances. A few weeks later he asked me to take him to the bank. As I got near to pick him up I caught a train. He called to say never mind, he would get someone else. A few days later a friend sent out a message to a large number of our friends. This guy lost his job and was running a check cashing con. Can you cash this check for me? After I had a stroke, I was in a coma and it didn't look like I'd wake up. The DRS asked my wife if they should let me go. I only exist because she said no. I didn't dodge a bullet so much as my wife blocked it for me. End number X200B, edit. I didn't think this would be this popular. I'm posting a video my wife made of the first year of recovery. If anyone's interested, warning, it is long, https://drive. Honestly this made me tear up a lil. Please tell your wife that she is incredible. My aunt did something similar. She saved her husband from a heart attack by using her nursing experience and network to get him on the table before it even started. Not me, but I had a field service engineer working on one of my big robotic liquid handlers. He decided to bypass the safety pin that prevents the heads from moving while the cover is open while he had a diagnostic program queued up on the computer. What he didn't know was that the instant he reinserted the safety pin the machine would execute the queued instructions and start moving, and he had a hand inside it right in the danger zone. I grabbed his shoulder and yanked his hand out an instant before it was crushed. He stopped ignoring me when I told him to stop bypassing safety lockouts to save a few minutes. Wow, I'm sure this guy isn't completely responsible for you guys putting a safety system in place, but it sounds like he certainly had a hand in it. And this kids is why Loto is so damn important. But why is it not coded to need a restart when the pin is reinstalled instead of just starting back up immediately? My newborn needed to be rushed to a super high-level NICU to be put into a state of induced hypothermia, because he only had hours before he would suffer permanent brain damage. I live in a small town in the middle of nowhere. The small town next door just barely upgraded their hospital to have that hypothermia suite, one of only a few in Texas. He's doing great, no sign of any damage. Our daughter is a NICU baby too. The only piece of unsolicited advice I will ever give expecting parents is when you are checking out hospitals, make sure to check out the NICU and select a hospital with a good one. You probably won't need it, but if you do you'll be happy it's there. Daughter is 4 now and a healthy little spitfire. Glad your son is too. I stayed up all night before a day trip to Hong Kong. You know that days when you haven't slept you're just kinda robotic and doing the human stuff, nearly zero awareness of anything? Hubs, my sister and I were hanging out around my parents' house on a very boring 4th of July. We decided to wash my husband's new car sitting in the driveway because it was hot out and an excuse to play in the hose. We were literally walking out the front door, and I said, we should eat lunch before we get all wet and stuff, and everyone agreed, so we turned around and went back inside. I was warming up something in the microwave, a Hot Pocket I think, and all of a sudden I hear the loudest bang I think I've ever heard from the direction of the front door. Hubs and I look at each other wide-eyed and run outside. I was greeted by the back end of a Crown Vic smoking something fierce, plowed into the tree in the middle of our yard. For a split second I was just stunned, then screamed to my sister inside to call 911. I looked over to the driveway, at the car we had been planning to wash just 5 minutes ago. Totaled. Completely totaled. Brand new 2011 G6, destroyed. Guy hit it so hard it did a complete 90-degree turn across the driveway. He actually hit it so hard, it ended up ricocheting and hitting the other cars in the driveway, mauling 2 other cars. Yard was fucked, Crown Vic was fucked, tree was fucked. We immediately assumed it was drunk driving, being the 4th and all. I went over to the driver's side and found a very old man, very bewildered, unable to comprehend what I was saying but conscious. I will never forget the look he gave me, confused, helpless, scared. I was on the line with the paramedics as they sent over the ambulances, and tried my best to follow their instructions. My sister was only 14 at the time, so I handled the call. Turns out dude was diabetic and had passed out behind the wheel due to low blood sugar, hit the gas pedal with his weight as he passed out, and was plowing down our residential street at about 65 miles per hour. He jumped the curb, drove down the sidewalk past another house, then slammed into my husband's car, and subsequently, the tree. If we had been anywhere near that yard/driveway, I have no doubt one or all of us would have been seriously injured or dead. It was sheer dumb luck and timing that saved us. Huge bullet dodged, or should I say, huge car dodged. I will never judge myself for craving Hot Pockets again, one day, they just might save my life. I'm glad y'all are all okay. Did the man turn out fine? It sounds like he took quite the hit, and normally something like that would cause a good bit of damage to the person. Was going to move to a different apartment complex last month. Got injured at work and lost hours, therefore, couldn't come up with the deposit money in time. Last week some asshat was cooking meth and caught the building on fire. Edit, my username. My current apartment complex is notorious in my city for having elevator troubles, so in reality, username does check out. Also, you could say I dodged 2 bullets, 1, the fire. 2, I know bad stuff happens everywhere blah blah blah, but the new place really didn't strike me as the kind of place where meth heads live. So I guess avoiding those kind of people for neighbors was dodging a bullet in itself. Thank God username doesn't check out. Edit, I am but a simple yam, thank you all for the awards. I posted this a while back. This is why I'll never live in a condo again. We bought one a few years ago and for some reason I started feeling really claustrophobic, to the point where only after a few months I begged my husband to sell the place, and either buy or rent a house. He humored me because I was so uncomfortable and adamant. Less than a year later the whole building burned to the ground. It was something like a 12-alarm fire. The thing is, it was an old, historic schoolhouse. We lived on the 4th floor, which was once the school's attic. There were no windows, just skylights set into the slanted roof. There was also no fire exit, since the building had been grandfathered in when safety codes had been implemented. Just one door in and out of the place. The fire had started in my neighbor's apartment. We shared a wall, who was a smoker. I was pregnant and newly laid off at the time, so I likely would have been home, and thus trapped. Watching it on TV was so weird. Seeing the flames shooting out of the skylight of my old bedroom was a little heartbreaking. No human lives were lost because the other residents were at work, but I do think people lost some pets. So awful. Everyone was left homeless, and I think they had to completely raze the building. After that I can't share a wall with someone else. As to why I made us leave, the only thing I can think of is that I subconsciously registered the lack of fire exits/windows and it set off a red flag or 8. The result was an intense feeling of claustrophobia. I can answer this in a literal way. When I was a child, I was playing video games with my little brother. Well, he found our dad's gun and fired it. No one was hurt, but it scared the shit out of me. My younger brother used to dry fire guns at me, till one time he fired a live one right by my head. Dad came home and wondered why he had a huge, black eye.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.